On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up in my Chicago apartment, the same familiar anxiety gnawing at my chest. Another year. Another forced family reunion. This time, it wasn't just any reunion. It was at the Breakers, a luxury resort in Palm Beach, Florida. An annual tradition, and one that, like clockwork, my grandfather paid for. I could almost hear him in the back of my mind, reminding me of his favorite saying, "Family is everything, except when it's not." As I did the final check on my suitcase, I let out a heavy sigh, staring at my reflection in the mirror. I'm Helen Walker, 33 years old, research director at a pharmaceutical company, pulling in a comfortable $160,000 a year, living solo in Chicago, independent, self-sufficient. I've worked hard for everything I have, from the high-rise apartment overlooking the skyline to my carefully built investments. Money's important, sure, but dignity? That's what truly matters. It's what my grandfather taught me. He's the one who always understood me, always had my back. He built his fortune from the ground up in construction, and he's the only family member who gets it, who gets me. The rest? They've always lived in his shadow, basking in the comfort of his generosity, pretending it's their own success. Take my sister, Catherine, a former flight attendant, now a full-time housewife. She posts pictures online of designer bags, 5-star dinners, exotic vacations. But what she doesn't show? The monthly checks from Grandpa that keep her mortgage paid, her car loans settled, and her daughter's private school tuition covered. Behind the glamorous life is a sinking foundation, one my grandfather props up every month. And then there are my parents, George and Margaret. Retired in sunny Florida, living the dream, right? Except it's all thanks to Grandpa's endless support. Their comfortable retirement is built on his generosity, their retirement fund an illusion. They've always treated me like an afterthought. But Catherine, she could do no wrong in their eyes. I still remember college. While I worked 2 part-time jobs and scraped by on scholarships, Catherine had everything handed to her. Her tuition, living expenses, study abroad, paid for, no questions asked. And the worst part, they never saw the difference. To them, it was just normal. Grandpa always told me, become someone who can stand on their own feet. And that's exactly what I've done. I've built my career from the ground up, lived within my means, and created a life that doesn't rely on anyone but me. But now, as I lift my suitcase to head to the airport, I feel that old dread creeping back, the one that's been building for years. Every Thanksgiving is the same. The endless comparisons, the competition, Catherine's desperate need to flaunt her perfect life, my parents' biased cold affection. Grandpa, silently watching it all, his gaze heavy with the weight of what he knows is coming. And this year, it's going to explode. The Breakers, a grand hotel, Italian Renaissance architecture, suites costing over $800 a night. The Thanksgiving dinner alone runs $200 per person. But despite the glitz and glamour of it all, our family's reality is fragile, shattered, a house of cards ready to collapse. My sister's luxury, my parents' retirement dream, none of it would exist without Grandpa's constant handouts. And this year, things were about to change. The question is, who would crack first? Through the taxi window from Palm Beach International Airport to the Breakers, Florida's warm sunlight streamed in. Thanksgiving Day had arrived, and the resort was just as stunning as I'd imagined. I was the last to arrive. Dragging my navy suitcase, I entered the grand Italian Renaissance-style building. My simple theory dress was a little wrinkled after the long flight. The lobby, pristine and dignified, had chandeliers sparkling overhead and the soft echo of footsteps on the marble floor. Guests were already enjoying their afternoon, but my focus was on family. As I walked toward the front desk, I saw my parents in a quiet corner of the lobby. They quickly looked away when our eyes met. Mother in a new resort dress, father casual but appropriate for his age. "Miss Walker, I'm sorry, I can't seem to find your reservation." the front desk attendant said, scanning the system. "I see the reservations for your family, but—" Just then, the sound of heels clicking on marble drew my attention. Catherine appeared, her Birkin bag swinging and Cartier watch gleaming. "Oh, Helen finally made it," she said, her voice full of sarcasm. Her words drew the attention of nearby guests. "How strange," she continued, loud enough for everyone to hear. "No reservation for you?" She smirked at my navy suitcase next to her Louis Vuitton one. "Actually," Catherine said, stepping closer with a triumphant grin, "I only made reservations for our family." Her voice carried through the lobby. "A room for me, my husband, and daughter, and one for Mom and Dad. Just for the real family, you see?" The room went silent. The front desk staff paused, unable to hide their shock. Our parents turned their backs, pretending not to notice. The air felt frozen. I took a slow breath and said, calm as ever, "I see. Then I'll leave." I nodded politely to the front desk staff, pulled out my phone, and hailed a taxi. "Wait!" Catherine called, her voice rising, but I was already walking toward the door. My sister, caught off guard, still wore that smug grin, but I kept walking. Outside, the Florida sunlight hit me like a wave, the air warm and real. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, but I felt a strange sense of freedom. I thought of Grandpa's words again. Become someone who can stand on their own feet. Now, I finally understood what he meant. Every Thanksgiving, it had been my tradition to bring Catherine a present. This year, I'd carefully chosen a pearl hair clip, still wrapped in my suitcase. But as I climbed into the taxi, I typed Palm Beach International Airport into my phone. I was already looking for the next flight back to Chicago. The high airfares didn't bother me. What bothered me more was the emotional energy I wasted every year during this holiday. Through the rearview mirror, the breakers grew smaller. The building, gleaming in the afternoon sun, seemed to symbolize our family's superficial glamour. And now, the first crack in that facade had appeared. I didn't know what would happen next, but I was sure of one thing. There was no turning back. Inside the taxi, the quiet air-conditioned space shielded me from the chaos outside. Through the window, Palm Beach's picturesque scenery flowed by. Palm trees, luxury homes, glimpses of the Atlantic sparkling in the distance. Normally, these views would have captivated me, but now they felt distant, as if they didn't belong to me anymore. Without hesitation, I dialed Grandpa's number. The ringtone felt longer than usual. "Helen, what's wrong?" His voice was as calm as always, but I could hear the concern beneath it. "I have something to report," I said, keeping my tone even. I explained what happened at the hotel, the missing reservation, Catherine's words, and how I left. I didn't add any emotion, just the facts. On the other end of the line, I could hear his breathing grow slightly rough. I knew he was controlling his anger, but I didn't seek sympathy. "I understand. I'll handle this from here," Grandpa said, his voice low but firm. In those words, I could feel a premonition of what was to come. As soon as we hung up, the calls began flooding in. First from Catherine, over 10 missed calls in 15 minutes. "Helen, Amy wants to see you. She was looking forward to our Thanksgiving. My friends are coming for dinner, and I was planning to post the perfect family Thanksgiving on Instagram. Do you know how embarrassing this is?" Her voice grew more frantic with each word. Between the calls, emails started pouring in from my parents. We could have added another room, but as Catherine said, we prioritized the real family. "You're independent now, aren't you?" Mom's email was cold and cutting. "If you can afford it, why not get your own room? It's not a big deal. Why are you being so emotional?" The next email was even worse, full of spiteful calculations. Dad's email was the hardest to read. "Catherine has a family now, you understand? Can't you just deal with it for Thanksgiving? This has always been your problem. Only thinking about yourself, never about family." Mom's email continued, making me feel like the villain. "We had everything planned for social media posts. We were going to take lovely photos of you and Amy. Now it's all ruined. Each message tightened the knot in my chest, but these were words I'd grown used to. Since childhood, Catherine and I had always been treated differently. As the taxi neared the airport, a new wave of messages flooded in. "Because of your selfishness, Amy is crying. She was waiting to see her aunt." Catherine's emails were full of desperation, hiding behind her daughter to shield her own pride. Then came more from Mother. "Poor Catherine. If you understood how desperate she is for Amy's future, but children's education costs money." Yet, I felt no need to reply. If anything, I was grateful for how their true colours had been laid bare. Just before arriving at the airport, an email from Grandpa arrived. "I'm proud of your decision. I understand everything." Those words brought a brief, unexpected swell of emotion. Not sadness, but a quiet, determined sense of clarity. The incoming calls kept coming. Catherine demanding I pick up. "Answer the phone right now." And from our parents, more accusations. "Your selfishness is tearing the family apart." But I was already in a place where their voices couldn't reach me. I stepped out of the taxi and walked toward the international terminal, booking my flight to Chicago. A strange sense of liberation washed over me. I was free from the false version of family I had clung to for so long. About 30 minutes after boarding the flight, a new email arrived from Grandpa. It was addressed to the entire family. "Today, on Thanksgiving, an incident occurred that severely damaged our family's dignity. The cruel treatment of Helen is an injury to the Walker family name and cannot be tolerated. Effective immediately, I am freezing all financial support to George, Margaret, and Catherine. I remind you that your luxurious lifestyles are entirely dependent on my support. Those who have lost sight of the family's essence, drowning in vanity and pretense, no longer qualify for such privilege." As I finished reading, calls from Catherine began flooding in. Her voice frantic, pleading, "Helen, please answer. Convince Grandpa." Voicemails were filled with panic. Her life built around Grandpa's $30,000 a monthly support now on the line. Then came emails from our parents, no longer arrogant but desperate. "Helen, please talk to Grandpa. This is about our retirement." Their $150,000 deposit for their retirement home, their medical insurance, everything was suddenly in jeopardy. "I'm sorry for what I said before, but this is a family crisis," Mother's email begged. I turned off my phone, staring out the window at the vast sea of clouds. This year, the perfect Thanksgiving family photos wouldn't be posted. For Catherine, that loss might hurt even more than the financial hit. As the plane moved smoothly toward Chicago, the passenger next to me scrolled through Thanksgiving dinner recipes on their phone. Normally, I'd be giving Amy her present in the hotel lounge. After landing and reconnecting to my Wi-Fi in Chicago, over 100 unread messages flooded my phone. Most were from my sister, her panic escalating with every text. "What am I supposed to do? I won't be able to pay the loans. What about Amy's school fees?" Emails from our parents followed suit, becoming increasingly desperate. "We might not get the retirement home deposit back. What are we supposed to do? I can't sleep at night thinking about the medical insurance." But the most striking was the email from Grandfather. Sent to the entire family, it read, "This measure is irreversible. Consider it the consequence of your own actions. Any objection to my decision will result in the termination of all remaining support." I read through the messages calmly. Gone was the arrogance. Only desperate pleas remained. It was the clearest display of everyone's true colours. Setting my phone aside, I brewed tea in the kitchen. Normally, I'd be enjoying a luxurious Thanksgiving dinner at the Breakers. A $200 per person special. The thought made me smile bitterly. Every year, my sister's family proudly posted pictures of their extravagant meals online. Meals they couldn't actually afford, while struggling to make monthly credit card payments. Just as I poured the hot water into my mug, a call from my sister's husband came through. Panic mixed with confusion in his voice as he criticised her spending habits. Their marriage, it seemed, was beginning to crack under the strain. Then came more emails from our parents. "The retirement home won't refund the $150,000 deposit. Medical insurance is self-pay starting next month because of you." Their message, filled with self-righteousness, continued to defend my sister and criticize me. It was clear they had learned nothing from the situation. I cut a lemon and added it to my tea. Tomorrow, I'd return to work. New research data awaited at the pharmaceutical company. A stable career, $160,000 a year, and investments I had carefully built. This was my foundation, all earned through my own effort. Outside the window, the lights of Chicago's high-rises twinkled like stars, casting a calm glow on the city. I thought of my credit card statement, paid off every month. Moderate luxury within my means, no debt. Grandfather's words echoed in my mind. Vanity is for others. Savings are for yourself. I had built my life here, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace with the choices I'd made. As Grandfather had always said, I had become someone who could stand on my own 2 feet. And now, I knew for certain that it had been the right choice. The incoming calls from my family kept ringing, but they were voices that would no longer reach me. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Chicago was blanketed in its first snow. Days passed with steady work in the pharmaceutical lab. The routine, unchanging. But my family's situation? That had shifted dramatically. It was first noticeable on social media. My sister's Instagram, which had once been updated daily, was suddenly silent. Her last post was from the day before Thanksgiving. Her Birkin bag at an upscale restaurant, tagged with her dream lifestyle. The comments, once full of praise, now seemed painfully ironic. What a wonderful life! Emails from father followed, and for the first time, I sensed genuine remorse. I'm reflecting on our years of extravagant living. We spoiled Catherine too much, and we were cold to you. I'm sorry. Similar messages arrived from mother, but nothing could undo the damage, nor could they erase the choice I had made. With their medical insurance subsidies cut off, my family was finally confronting the harsh reality of healthcare costs. Our pension alone is nowhere near enough. I finally understand how luxuriously we were living, my mother admitted in an email. Catherine's situation was even worse. I received an unexpected call from her husband. I've found hidden debts she kept secret. I'm shocked by the credit card bills. We can't keep up this lifestyle anymore. The support from Grandfather had been their safety net, and without it, their facade of affluence was quickly crumbling. We're looking at cheaper houses now, considering public schools for Amy too. Catherine cries every night. His voice was drained with exhaustion, and I could hear the strain in his words. It seemed their marriage, like their finances, was on the brink. In stark contrast, my life continued on its steady course. I arrived at work at 8 a.m. and returned home at 6 p.m. Weekends were spent attending investment study groups, reviewing my savings, and continuing my life within reasonable means. Just yesterday, I was promoted to team leader for a new research project. My salary was set to increase gradually. My investments were going well, and I had no worries about the future. I'd come to understand the wisdom of Grandfather's favourite saying, vanity brings momentary satisfaction. Savings bring lifelong peace of mind. That weighty truth had begun to resonate deeply within the entire family. While my parents fretted about their retirement and my sister struggled with mounting debt, I remained focused on my ordinary, fulfilling life. Over the past 2 weeks, the frequency of calls and emails from my family had decreased significantly. The once daily pleas had dwindled to just once or twice a week, and the tone of their messages had shifted to resignation. Amy's transferring to public school. She'll take the bus now. I never thought I'd read those words. Catherine's latest email hinted at her accepting reality. The dream of private schools and lavish vacations she had shared so proudly on social media would never return. Our parents were also adjusting to their new circumstances, considering a move from their upscale Florida retirement community to a more affordable condo. Their dream of a golden retirement had crumbled, just like that. We've been living with the wrong values for years, Father wrote in his latest email. While that was a step toward acknowledgement, I wasn't sure whether it would be the catalyst for rebuilding true family bonds. Last week, I received a brief but poignant email from grandfather. Awakening to the truth of life sometimes brings pain, but it is necessary pain. Your decision gave them an important lesson. I didn't respond. Instead, I quietly saved the message, knowing the lesson would echo for a long time. 3 months after that Thanksgiving, the first signs of spring began to appear in Chicago. My life had remained consistent, and in many ways, it had grown even more fulfilling. The pharmaceutical company's new project was progressing smoothly, and last week I received another promotion. My achievements as research director were recognized, and my salary would increase to $200,000. My investments continued to grow steadily, and I felt a deep sense of stability. From my office window, I could see the vast surface of Lake Michigan, its waves sparkling in the spring sunlight. The view filled me with quiet hope. My desk was piled high with new research data, and I found myself immersed in work. It was the time I cherished most. A birthday gift from grandfather arrived the other day. A simple but elegant pearl necklace. The attached card bore his familiar handwriting. True brilliance dwells in those who stand on their own feet. I had started maintaining minimal contact with my parents. They had moved from their upscale Florida community to an affordable condominium, struggling with medical bill payments. They seemed to be slowly adjusting to their new reality. Luxury may bring fleeting joy, but there's true security in a grounded lifestyle. For the first time, my mother's email reflected genuine understanding. My sister's family had also moved to a modest suburban neighborhood. Amy had started attending public school and was getting used to the school bus. Catherine's social media, once active and full of extravagant posts, had fallen silent. In a rare email, my sister wrote, "How empty it all seems now," posting just to keep up appearances. Despite the ongoing strain in their marriage and the weight of credit card debt, they were no longer denying the reality of their situation. Meanwhile, I had begun setting new goals for myself. I wanted to make further progress in pharmaceutical research and eventually lead my own research team. I hoped to pass on my knowledge to young researchers, fostering growth in the field. On weekends, I attended investment and economic study groups, where I met people leading stable, practical lives. The conversations, grounded and free from vanity, felt refreshing. The Thanksgiving incident had taught each of us valuable lessons. The importance of financial independence, the emptiness of a pretentious lifestyle, and above all, the true meaning of family. Grandfather's final words continued to resonate in my heart. Real bonds can only be born after overcoming hardship. In my desk drawer, the pearl hair clip I had intended for Amy's present remained beautifully wrapped. I wondered if, someday, when she truly understands the value of standing on her own feet and the emptiness of social media validation, she would appreciate it. Perhaps that would be the right time to give it to her. Outside the window, early spring winds rustled through the street trees, a gentle reminder of new beginnings.